3 years on this this project. My name is Ronald Dahl. I'm a consultant and a curriculum developer at Aarhus University in a center called Center for Educational Development. And together with my colleague Dorte Rossen and Rasmus Hansen, I've worked on digital competences for students for the last years. So just a short presentation of Aarhus University, so that you can maybe compare to where you come from and what are the similarities to your education or interests, and then some mapping and how we've got to use DigComp 2.2. It was 2.1 when we started, but now it's DigComp 2.2. And then we've been developing these models and these dialogue tools that I would like to share with you. So just to show you where I'm situated up here in the top left corner in this building right now, called Center for Educational Development. And this is our campus at Aarhus University. The yellow buildings and the red buildings, campus 2.2, is the old hospital that's now being rebuilt for university purposes. We have 5 faculties: arts, business and social science, health, natural science, and technical sciences, about 40,000 students, and about 220 programs. Being a university in higher education, I just want to remind what type of education we are working with. And this is, we are educating bachelor, master, and PhD students. So this is what you would call EQF 6 to 7. And in our strategy at the university, we have this model here on the left, where we want to be a research-heavy, collaborative education institution. And my main focus is in the education right-hand side. And in our 2025 strategy, you see here at the bottom, one of the strategies is that we want to figure out a way to ensure digital competences for all our students and all our graduates. So at the center where I'm situated, we are about 50 people working in pedagogic, curriculum development, digital support of our education. And my main focus is on the ensuring of digital competences for all our graduates, so that they can go out and get a good job. And the jobs today, 25% of these jobs require some kind of digital competences for applying for the job. So, and this is a number that is rising. So therefore, we need a language for our graduates so that they can apply for these jobs. So when we started out looking at digital competences, it was kind of many different roadmaps, and it was very hard for us to figure out how should we address digital competences. Where should we start? What is important? What do the student need, and when do they need it? And how do we get progression and integration, and who's going to do all this? So it easily becomes a very diffuse discussion where you're talking about things that you yourself are interested in, instead of figuring out how can we customize it so it fits exactly for the individual graduate student. So one of the things that we've been talking about is raised by this very interesting scientist, Ludwig Wittgenstein, who says that if we cannot speak about it, we should let it pass over in silence. And digital competences is something that we had huge difficulties even talking about. What exactly do we mean about digital? What exactly do we mean about competences? and when it's a graduate student, it's kind of the end product of the education. So when we start our discussions with faculty members or administration, we really need to have a lot of words in place so we ensure that we are talking about the same things. Another thing that's really important is what is curriculum and what part of curriculum do we want to focus on? And as you see here, the curriculum for the students and for the programs can be described in many different ways. So the thing that we focused on was the written curriculum. So what do we write? What is in writing about a study program? What can the students read about an education and about their learning outcomes during an education or a course? So the focus of our work has been on the written curriculum. Then we started to make different kinds of mappings and figuring out, well, what exactly is written curriculum and what can the students read about their studies? And one of the things so we have here some different actors. So we have the students here when they start their courses, then they travel through 3 to 8 years of education, and then they become these graduates. And for many of these students, the first time that they get a piece of paper where it says, this is what you learned, is what is called their competence profile. So we wanted to make this competence profile, what we write exactly for the students, to become much more apparent in our written curriculum. So how do we do this? Another thing that happens very fast is that we start talking about faculty members and teachers. So what are their digital competences? And then the discussion has a tendency to drift away, and the focus have to shift very fast from teachers and educators and their needs, instead of having the focus on the students. So there's many different things here to consider. One of our colleagues at Business and Social Science made a small question where he asked a group of students, about 250 students, how they identified the shift between a bachelor program to a master program. How did they make this choice? And as you see here, over 92% of the students said that they read the course descriptions. So this written curriculum, it's not something that the students take lightly. It's in fact a tool that they use to figure out which way they want to go. So the more clear and exact and explicit we can be in our written curriculum, the more we can help the students to make the right choices. And if the students can make the right choices, then we can be better at getting good matches for our students, so that we maybe can get less dropouts. We can get the students to have a better understanding of why they are learning what they are doing right now. So we met the DigComp 2.1, and it became 2.2 last year in March. So so this framework gives us the language that we were really missing. It takes digital competences and in a very, very simple way splits it into these 5 domains that are easily to understand and are easily to explain. So it has been a huge help for us to use this language in our communication with the 5 faculties. Now, a small disclaimer, it says that we have implemented this at all our faculties, and we are kind of running. We are in the middle of this work, and in some ways it has not been implemented anywhere. It's still just models and tools for dialogue. So, but we got until 2025 to work on this. So it's just to say that we are not at any end point yet. So then if we combine our tool that I showed you before here with our written curriculum with the DigComp 2.2 model, what do we get? Well, we get a lot of very, very difficult choices, and like water and oil, it doesn't really mix very well, especially when we get to the 21 competence elements out here. It doesn't fit anywhere specific in our written curriculum. We can't take them one-to-one and place them. It doesn't make sense. So another problem we encounter is the proficiency levels, where we have this scale of levels that is taken partly from the EQF way of thinking, a little bit from Bloom's taxonomy, and then split into 4 overall levels: foundation, intermediate, advanced, and highly specialized. And we really enjoy using many of the great examples in DigComp 2.2 as examples. We have a hard time really figuring out how we should use these proficiency levels when we are talking about, for example, master programs or PhD programs. Another thing that we have been discussing here at the community of practice is the level 7 and 8. And here we, as educators from a university, would definitely advocate for not making tests or trying to solve the problem with level 7 and 8. We would suggest, or I would suggest, that we leave that to highly specialized areas. So I'll come back to that in a few seconds. Then we encounter the DigComp Edu model. And this model is also very, very interesting, and we spend quite some time trying to use this model, where we should have a DigComp 2.2 language model here at the red area number 6 here in the DigComp Edu model. That should match these ones over here. Then here in the middle, we have a lot of didactics and pedagogics. And this one, we at university level have a lot of tools, and we've been working on in this area for many years. And this really helped us during the COVID period from 2000 to 2001. All these tools that we can use. So we're not going to spend much time on that. And out here we have some reflection practice, professional collaboration, and organizational communication. That's all fine, but it's on an individual level. So what should be the connection in this model between the educator and the students? That's where we found this one here with the subject-specific competence is really interesting. So this area is the same as this area. So if the teachers, the educators, could introduce the students to the subject practice, the digital subject practice in their expertise area, and bring that to the classroom, then that would be something which could be really interesting. So we wanted to figure out a way to connect what the teachers and educators do in their research with what they do in their teaching practice, and then keep that in the 2.2 language. But this language is drifting again. So you see that in the two models, even though they are so closely related, it's only problem solving down here, which in fact stays the same in the two models. And problem solving, when we get to higher education or EQF 6 to 8 is a little bit too loose. So solving a problem digitally is at the stage where we press enter so what we want in academia is more the analytics and the reflection room and the creative room of problems identification and analysis. So even though I try to keep it very strictly to the DigComp 2.2, I can see that for some areas it can be important to have a more nuance in the language. So we tried to take the DigComp 5 areas and then apply them to the subject-specific competencies and see, could we use this network to support the students' progression in digital competences. And if we take a 6-semester course, you have course A, B, C, D, E, and it's some electives, and you have a bachelor thesis. And what we then were interested in is in the written curriculum, were we able to identify information and data literacy? Where is that written, and how can we identify it in the different courses at the different semesters, remembering that the students in fact read the course descriptions? So could we get some kind of mapping like this, where we could pick out bits and pieces and then show that there's a progression over time? We could maybe do some alignment between courses. For example, if they learn to use MATLAB at first semester and then they shift to C# in semester 3 and then into Python in semester 5, maybe we could have a discussion, is that really important or is that really necessary? Could we use the Python programming language throughout the semesters for the sake of the students? So what we were then able to do were that we took each course. So you see here we've written that here we have 10 plus 10 plus 10. That's 30 ECTS, and that's the credit we use for a full semester of studying. So if this information and data literacy appears here in course A, then we give it 10 points. So you can get 30 points for each of these 5 domains each semester. And then we try to make an algorithm where we could then show a progression in the different areas throughout an education. And this has then become our dialogue tool when we go out to meet the different programs, to be able to show them, this is what you're writing in your curriculum. And if you're writing, and if you really want your students to be strong in problem solving, then it should be written. So this is one of the dialogue tools that we've developed, and I'll show you a few more that we have adapted or developed ourselves. Another tool which is we use for our workshops is adapted from the German program called DigComp, and DigComp adapts also the DigComp 2.2 terminology. It's between 6 or 7 natural science university in Germany. I've put the reference at the end. They found that the language of DigComp 2.2 was too simple, so they developed some more names here. We tried this, and with the 12 elements, people get confused. So very, very fast, people are in our workshops are saying, we like the more simple model because the discussions and the debates we have from the DigComp 2.2 model is sufficient for our dialogue. We don't need to split it into both data acquirement, data processing, and data visualization, for example. It's fine that it's just data literacy. Another simple dialogue tool that we use is where if we, for example, say problem analysis or problem solving, is it present or is it absent? Is it irrelevant or is it relevant to your course or to your program? It's the same as up here where you have less relevant and relevant. If we take and say that safety and responsible use is highly most relevant for our education, then it doesn't mean that creativity is not present at all. It just means what is it we want our students to be able to feel in their blood and in their gut that they're good at. They're good at safety and responsible use because they're going out to work with neural networks or big data or something else. So this is as the model looks now. The model we want to use to explain a large amount of faculty members how they can use this terminology at two levels of their education. So this faculty level here is also what we at a university would call a political level. So we have agreed on a faculty level at 2 of our 5 faculties that we want to use this model and this language. And our pro-rector of education has also nodded to this language. So this should be a good way or a true way of talking about digital competences at our university. That's the first hurdle. That's getting that solved. Then we have these 2 levels here. And this is our program level. This is the written curriculum, for example. This is our competence profile for the different education. So here we can sit down with the course leaders, with the curriculum managers, and they can say, well, if digital content creation and creativity was most important, how would we then make narratives for our programs so that we can write that into our curriculum? When we've written these narratives, these descriptions of our educations, we can then take this narrative and go down to the next level, which is what we would call the practical level. This is where education actually occurs. This is together with the professors and the postdocs and the students in collaboration. This is in fact where the things occur. And so we need a language that can disseminate from the curriculum language and into practice. So what we can ask here is, at the different courses, how do they support creativity, digital content creation? We can have a look down here at exam forms. If we have a 4-hour written exam, it doesn't really support any digital competence. But if we have a group report or a portfolio over the semester, or they have to produce something, for example, a thesis, then there's automatically a lot of digital competence development for the students. So this speaks into the whole development of our educations and in our way of testing and making exams and making good exams. And it can also help us in this situation we are in now with new technologies like artificial intelligence. What will happen at these different levels with artificial intelligence. And I think that the DigComp 2.2 examples did, in fact, include a lot of these things. So we have some good inspirations from the framework already. So as one example, we have a faculty of health. And here we've been working for about 6 months now, together with the task force of 20 faculty members on mapping these things on a level that can go across all 13 educations at this faculty. So this is what they come up with, words or topics can be something they can use across their education. So all educations do not have to pick out all of these, but if they, let's say they pick out 3. So if it was in public health, they could, for example, pick out information security, create content, and citizens' involvement. So that might be the 3 things that is most relevant for students in public health. If they then have picked out these 3 elements, then they would go out and look into their courses and see which course supports this. So what is the connection between what we write the education is and what's actually going on? So it becomes a tool that is kind of pragmatic in terms of translation between what we are saying that we're doing and what we are actually doing. Another thing that has happened, and usually when you start these digital developing processes, is that this is a great result in our mind, and we really enjoy working with it. But it's often also what's going on around such a discussion and development that can be really fruitful. For example, it has become apparent that there is a lot of elective courses at another faculty, at the Faculty of Technical Science, that the Faculty of Health find really useful. So this discussion has also initiated a collaboration between faculties where they are looking into the possibility of sharing elective courses. So this was, for example, where education chooses computational thinking, development, and interdisciplinary collaboration, and then these could be elements that is found in curriculum. And this should be a tool for the educations where they feel that they are just being inspired by a model, and then they write it, but they write it so that it fits, let's say 90% or whatever, into the overall agenda, because then we can get a discussion also between institutions and between graduate students becoming good citizens with a good job, and at the other end that we can require or attract the relevant students for the relevant programs. So this is just to show you that already this is in Danish, but a lot of our programs have a lot of digital elements already. So with this tool, we don't have to change everything within the curriculum as it is. We just need to tell and be more explicit about what's already there. And if that's the agenda, that faculty and faculty members don't have to do a lot of changes in the beginning, then they are more positive in starting this process. So that was my my presentation for you.
Thank you, Mads. Thank you very much. So, if anyone has questions, please just raise your hands or just switch on your mic. Yes, please, Jed.
Thank you for the presentation. Can I ask about the use and training of students in the quantitative data, the data that is being used by the institution? So, for example, we use a mailer so that we can then see that all emails 100% are received, opened and actioned, and that the time it takes between an action, so a click through to the learning, the virtual learning environment, to a quiz and to the reading materials that are embedded within the quiz, are sufficiently short for us not to then assume that they need unsolicited support, or if they are sufficiently too quick that they need additional materials. So that data is for our own use, and by showing it to students, they then can be involved in, firstly, what we think are important metrics, that they can also use the free or low cost tools that we are using, integrated with all the other metrics and data that we're using, that we use Looker Studio, which is free, to produce live dashboards that are differentiated, that can be compared over decades at all levels of the institution, as a part of informing a student that they are in a learning environment that is not just optimizing through a positive ideal their outcomes, but through a metric which can be gained, that the digital skills involved are the same digital skills that we utilize. Can you speak a little bit about how you're using the digital tools and the data that they generate as a means of teaching students about digital tools and the metrics that they generate? Thank you. Sorry,
Mads, just before answering, Jed, what is the context you're referring to? Which kind of education institution you come from?
Sorry, higher education.
Okay.
So this is level 5 through 8.
Okay, thank you. Please, Mads.
So thank you, Jed, for a question. We have a huge digital infrastructure at Aarhus University, fully supported, and many tools. So we have a full system, a learning management system, and so forth. And one thing that has occurred is that we were able to see progression for each student, maybe not in as detailed as the email example, but the email example is good because it gave us problems having insight into the students' work. So in fact, now we don't give access to this kind of information to the teachers, because we had some examples of students saying, now we want to know everything that you know about us. And that gave us a problem because we had to spend so much time sampling all the information we have on individual students just because it's possible. So we are shutting down the general access to individual students' work routine or when they do what, simply just not to know. So we don't want to know when they open an email, and due to GDPR. So that's basically what we are trying to deliver, is that we don't intrude into the student's private life, and the things that you can learn and see through the digital whereabout and digital patterns is quite scary. So I think that we've chosen a good way to not provide information on individual level.
Thank you, Mads. And Wissam, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was a great opportunity to hear about the academics and the implementation in the higher education levels. My name is Wissam, and I am a lecturer at Palestine Polytechnic University. My concern is about two major issues in DigComp. The first one is the learning outcomes, and the second one is about the assessment. All the time I was thinking of DigComp and reading, and right now I'm trying to create a kind of a localization in Arabic language for DigComp. So I'm thinking all the time, as we think in the universities in higher education, about using certain set of competences in other disciplines. So including integrating DigComp into other disciplines. This is one, and the other is to take DigComp as a standalone and teach the competencies and train them. The major concern is, for me, is about the learning outcomes, especially because DigComp did not create specific learning outcomes. They just have examples. They have proficiency levels, which are all very good. But I, as an educator or as an academic, want always, just like if you know the Entry-Comp framework, it has very specific set of learning outcomes. So how comfortable you were dealing with DigComp without having specific learning outcomes? This is the first question. And the second is about the assessment. How are we going to assess and come up with a result about my student or my trainee and describe them as they are like A, proficient, B, proficient, or 90, 80, and something like that? How comfortable can you be with the current situation of, or the current form of DigComp, and thinking of these issues for the academic sector? And thank you very much.
Thank you, Wissam. Thank you for a good question. We are experimenting on an introduction to our students. So when the students start, let's say first, second semester, we want to try out the pix.org system, where they get these general introductions, which is one-to-one with DigComp 2.2 and the examples. So it's a system that we want to see if we can raise the general basic level of our students, so that they know how to use and communicate email. They know about etiquette, and they know about simple data management. So I've been. I also had a visit yesterday from Le Mans University, whom I visited, and in France they have some great examples on how to implement this assessment system. But our problem is the same as, I guess, your problem, that when you then get into the courses of geology, physics, theology, mathematics, medicine, then there's a kind of a problem in using DigComp. That's why we cut off the 21 elements and then just use the 5 domain terminology, and then translates that into the different subjects. So we use the terminology from DigComp Edu, the subject-specific digital competences, and this is a key also for the individual teacher and subjects to feel comfortable with us coming with a general terminology. So if they can't use their own language together with the general digital competence language, then they won't use it. So our only way to get a common language, like Ludwig Vygotsky is saying, that if we can't speak together in a common language, neutral and simple, where we understand what is creativity or what is safety and responsible use in a higher education setting. Yeah, so I don't know if that exactly answers, but your question. But I think that we can use the DigComp terminology in the first semesters, and when we think about our students as citizens and what kind of basic digital competences do we need them to have, so they also can do what Jeb was talking about when they work with emails or when they work with communicating in study groups, so that we get them on the same page very fast. But as through the semesters, they need to raise above that.
Yes, I wanted to say something about these questions. With respect to DigComp, with some, you're right. I mean, currently DigComp doesn't have learning outcomes, only proposes examples of knowledge, skills, and attitude. This is something that it's currently being reflected and discussed upon, in the sense that, especially, I don't know if you're following also what is happening with the European Digital Skills Certificate. There is a process going on that side, and this issue came up very clearly because the issue of how to actually measure and have a common reference that everybody can refer to with enough level of detail to allow then the comparability of different approaches and different certificates, and their, let's say, matching or compliance with DigComp is a big issue. So this is to tell you that it's a topic that it's coming up in the agenda of the future development of DigComp, and there is no answer yet, but it's something that in a relatively short time will be, let's say, publicly communicated what kind of work is going to be taken in this direction. And concerning the assessment, yes, the model that Mads was referring to, PICS, is undoubtedly a very interesting tool, because it's available in French but also in English, and it's mapped to DigComp and to the proficiency levels up to level 6. So it covers almost the whole, or most of the range of proficiency levels, and it can definitely be used to measure, to assess students because it's most of the questions in this system. It's an adaptive system which submits more complex. If you're successful in answering to a question, then you get a new one, which is a little bit more difficult, complex. So it leads you to understand at which level you are at in different areas. And it's so it's good to look at. And then just one last consideration. I think that you were talking about running DigComp specific activities, or rather blending, let's say, the development of digital competence within other disciplinary activities. And personally, I think the second way is the best. And that's why I found also very interesting when Mads talked about, we met and discussed about their experience. I find it very interesting because their method, what they're doing, is exactly how can you, on the one hand, highlight what you're already doing in your, because very often in a whatever disciplinary course, partly related to the topic and partly related to the educational method, as he was explaining before. I mean, if you do a paper and pen based test is one thing. If you ask your students to do a digital based test, you're already asking them to develop, you're obliging them to develop some digital competence. And the same is true for group work and all kinds of activities that you can design. And so I think it's really interesting, because that's the way you actually develop digital competence in real life. So it's important, and the tool that the University of Aarhus has been developed, it's useful because it helps teachers understand where they are already acting, how they could improve, what additional activities they could envisage, because they have this a common map to refer to. So this is it. Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to say that we've been talking about when we've developed and finished this model more, we would like to invite you to a small workshop or something where we could test out, and you can see how we use it if you want to use it in your own at your own university or your own settings. Also make the template available so you can translate it and use it as a dialogue tool in your own organization. So these are some of the things that we could do. Marek?
Yeah, so just I have put some information to the chat. Now I'm coordinating a project called Distinct, because we want to be distinct from other people. That means it is digital support in chemistry teaching. And even just now we have a workshop in Bologna dealing with digital support for teachers, especially as for evaluation and remote courses. And in a couple of months, we'll have a similar workshop for laboratory, how to organize digital support for laboratories. As I am a member of this DigComp community of practice, so regularly I pass information on these developments to my colleagues from my consortium. But anyway, we would be very, very interested in collaborating with persons just like Mats who are working on similar issues, because now we would like also to determine what kind of digital skills are important for chemistry sector. And not only for higher education, because also in Poland we have so-called sector skills council for chemistry sector. So also already we had some webinars for our industry on artificial intelligence, on IT skills and so on. So in general, we are very, very interested in, let us say, making a kind of projection of mapping of DigComp 2.2 on different target groups in chemistry sector. I'm also representing European Chemistry Thematic Network, so there are, I don't know, around 100 chemistry faculties across Europe. So we are working together, and even we started to work on refreshing our European chemistry curriculum, core chemistry curriculum, and also we started to work how to put, for example, DigComp, GreenComp, EntreComp elements in our chemistry curriculum. So just I am very, very interested in collaboration. For example, if we could organize a meeting with Mats and your colleagues, for example, to discuss some technical details, it would be of great help to us. And even we can organize some joint seminars, for example, if you would be interested. So then we can put you on our colleagues who would be interested on our mailing list. And when we would organize some events, for example, some disseminated events, we can share with you our results and also invite you.
Thank you very much. We would love to. And I think that some of the key issues lies in where it's most difficult to implement. And laboratory work and laboratory skills is so hard to measure, because we come from basic chemistry, or we come from a lot of natural science learning and formulas, and then we move into the lab, and it's just two different worlds meeting. And it's so interesting. And what we can find here might be the key for many other transitions in life, where we go from a very theoretical, research-based way of working into a very practical, tactile world of the laboratory.
So we are also, so we are also discussing this virtual research environment, and also we look for various examples of good practice concerning, for example, remote assessment of practical skills, for example, because there were some work, for example, in Germany. As far as I know, there was a project in Germany for vocational education and training, and they make some piloting for some professions and just to find what kind of practical skills can be evaluated remotely. So also we are very interested in this thing. To what extent can we support using digital things, some practical work, for example, how to organize it? It was very important, for example, during COVID.
And I think with this model, and we can have this discussion and in other subjects, in other areas, but when we get a language that then talks into ourselves as just citizens, but on an academic level, but we use the same language regardless, I think that's a very important also when we talk between disciplines. And the world is not becoming more unidisciplinary; it's becoming more multidisciplinary in our way of working. So it's extremely important that we get a common way of talking about something as basic as competences. So I'd love to join any collaborations, and if anyone wants to use our experience, we will make it available, and we will, together with Stefano and the DigComp Hub, make some workshops or whatever, because we probably won't publish in peer-reviewed journals, because the world is moving too fast today for peer-reviewed journals. So therefore, we are hoping that that we can put this into the hub machinery and then get something done instead of publishing a paper that nobody reads.
Correct, Mads. I would like to add on this, besides this, the support for like dialogue across disciplines within academics and the perspective of the citizen that Mads keep referring to, which is very important. I would like to underline the fact that the use of DigComp is becoming increasingly important also in the world of work, in the business sector, because you have the same problem. I mean, people are asking like a chemical worker or in any kind of job, what kind of skills do they need today, and of digital skills. And of course, part of the digital skills are the ones that are covered by the transversal digital skills that are the object of DigComp. And then, of course, you have sector-specific or technology-specific related skills which are relevant in given profession. And again, having a common reference framework has proved very useful. I mean, as a starting guide, it's not the end. It's not the. I think it's useful as a tool that supports investigation, dialogue, and so on. And then, of course, you have to build on it. I mean, it's not the end point. DigComp is a starting point, in my opinion. Okay. Any other comments? We're close to the end of our meeting. I saw here the message, Judith Cosgrove from JRC, who is the person currently in charge at JRC of the further development of DigComp. She's attending this webinar, and she underlined, I don't know if you read it in the chat, that working on learning outcomes is exactly the direction we are heading in. And we plan to engage with the DigComp community on this soon. So it's, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jude. Okay, then if there are no additional questions, let's, as I said at the beginning, we will share Mads' presentation, the recording on the DigComp COP. If you're not yet part of the DigComp COP, let me share with you some links about the COP and the DigComp Hub website. And we will get in touch. I mean, as Mads was proposing, we were thinking of organizing some more focused and operational online workshop later on, maybe in September, I don't know. And so if you're interested, we will post a message on the COP to see who is interested, how many people would like to join. and then we'll organize it and let you know when and how to join it. So thank you very much, and
Thank you very much.
have a nice almost weekend. Goodbye for everyone.